For our presentation, we decided to do an analysis of the main aspects and differences of the tale Snow White. Looking at sources including articles, books, and the Walt Disney motion picture of Snow White, we were able to pick apart and speak on the various omitted details of the Disney version and the Grimm brothers' original tale. Red as blood, white as snow, black as crow, chromatic symbolism of womanhood in fairy tales by Francisco Vaz de Silva is an article presenting the tricolor representation of red, black, and white. Disney and the Butchering of Snow White by Inigo Stingham breaks down the tale in sections while discussing the importance of symbolism in Grimm's version omitted in the Disney picture. Snow White by the Grimm brothers tells the original tale of Snow White as it was meant for the public to know. Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs by Walt Disney is an adapted version of the Grimm brothers' original tale, Snow White. In the Grimm brothers' tale, Snow White was depicted as a young 7-year-old girl. She was referred to as Little Snow White in the story, and her youth was emphasized with maturity. Her physical appearance came about through the words of her birth mother asking for a child as white as snow, as red as blood, and as black as the wood of the window frame. Disney, Snow White was born, lips as red as rose, hair black as ebony, and skin white as snow. Even though presented as a young adult, Snow White possessed a childlike voice, a naive understanding of the world, and reacted to situations as a child would, with confusion and discomfort. In German heritage, dwarfs were seen as equals and they were respected because of loyalty, which is why they were given credibility in the original tale. Being wise, they warned Snow White of the dangers of the stepmother and requested Snow White keep house to their standards for protection. Their relationships is not a power dominion type. They were equally in charge. In Disney, the dwarfs are referred to as little untidy children. Seeing the house and the pigsty it was, Snow White took it upon herself to assume the role of mother and clean it for them in order to stay. When she discovers they are men, they are called little men, but are still given a curfew and forced to wash up. The relationship between Snow White and the dwarfs is one of power. Asking the mirror for confirmation on her looks and not receiving the answer she craves, envy and pride fills the heart of the queen. She is known as a beautiful woman but longs for all the beauty over all the maidens in the land. Longing the death of Snow White, the queen's aggression becomes unbearable by eating the supposed organs of her beloved stepdaughter and attempting to kill Snow White 3 times. Vain and wicked, because of her fear of her stepdaughter's beauty surpassing her own, the stepmother becomes the anti-ideal woman. Her appearance is less than appealing, her actions are scheming, and never mentioned to be beautiful, with her characteristics resembling envy. Her envy kills her by a boulder, only to crush her into the underworld where she belongs. Grimm's version speaks of 3 death attempts by the queen. 1, suffocating her with a lace, a clean death, white. The second, containing a comb to comb through her hair for the poison to get as close to her body as possible, close to the body, red. And the last attempt is the apple, half white and half red, leading to her death, the darkness, which is black. In Disney, the death of Snow White was simple. There was only one attempt, the apple. The apple, completely red, created the idea of temptation. Prepared in a mixture of black, red, and white, this was a final answer to the killing of Snow White. Though the queen is seen as an evil character, she is pardoned by her less attempts to kill Snow White and the cleanliness of the kill. Red depicts the color of temptation, roses, blood, and the apple. The color red is used throughout the story by the Grimm brothers to resemble the meaning and sign of healthy life, but becomes her trap into death. In both stories, the apple is red. The apple essentially is the reason of her death, but creates a contradiction when she comes back to life, reinstating the importance of the color red for healthy life. White depicts the color of purity, innocence, youth, and new life. The color white is used throughout the story to add association with purity and innocence to Snow White. She is illuminated in a white light when she dies in Disney. She is surrounded by white flowers, white candles, doves, and is covered in white sheets. In Grimm, the second half of the apple was white, untouched and cleaned of poison. Black. Black depicts the color of death, darkness, evil, and to cover or hide light. The color black represents the evilness of the queen. To protect her insecurities of the new beauty, she tries to cover Snow White's light by killing her and getting rid of her. Throughout the stories, the color black stayed closely linked with negativity and ending of a past. In Snow White by Grimm's brother, the number 3 has importance. There are 3 women, 3 drops of blood, 3 attempts to kill her, 3 colors, 3 references to glass, and 3 days of mourning. The 3 shows a never-ending cycle with the story and is finally broken by what started the cycle to begin with, Snow White's life. Glass, in both stories, become defining objects. Though not all are presented in Disney's version, all 3 women are defined by the glass objects with them. The mother was hidden behind a window, only to look out and never knowing her future, Snow White. The stepmother, trapped in a mirror, only to learn how to love herself and not those around her. And Snow White was placed in a glass coffin to be looked at and keeping her untouched. One article speaks about religion references. The Holy Trinity, a reference to the number 3 and the doves. The white doves are shown in the ending of Disney's film when Snow White awakens resembling purity. While riding off into the direction of the castle, it is illuminated in a gold-white light, looking as if it was the opening to the gates of heaven for the ideal couple. Watching Snow White, some connections were made on our own. Carved into the throne of the queen are 2 serpents. The serpent, known to have given the apple to Eve in the Garden of Eden, is represented as the evil of Satan. The queen portrays features of Satan being the master of disguise, tempting Snow White to create the first sin of her life. In Disney's version, the queen is placed on a chair carved as a peacock with wide blue, ivory, and gold-colored feathers. Known to be ostentatious, peacocks represent vanity. Where serpents, crows, and vultures are surrounded by death and darkness. Throughout the movie, when these 3 animals are seen, it is when the queen is planning to kill Snow White. While the mourning of Snow White was occurring in Grimm's version, there were 3 birds with a biblical reference joining. First, an owl, representing insight and wisdom seen amongst the shadows of death. The second, a raven, associated with introspection, was seen as a forbidden food in the Bible, representing Snow White's forbidden mistake. The last bird to watch over Snow White was the dove. The dove is often used to describe the Holy Spirit and to signify the divine. The dove, being the last bird, shows Snow White's sanctity within the glass coffin and importance to those surrounding her, because she is seen as their hope of something better.